It's Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we'll be covering on today's show. Well, coronavirus continues its highly successful cancellation tour of 2020, now claiming E3 as its latest victim. With the huge gaming convention reportedly not happening. We'll tell you what will be happening, and that is SpaceX sending astronauts to the International Space Station within just a few months, according to COO Gwynne Shotwell. We'll talk about the plans for the Crew Dragon, and we've got some great guests on today's episode with Daniel Hernandez, the Vice President of Data and AI for IBM, joining to talk about Project Debater going to market. And Ian Schaefer is the founder and CEO of Kindred, which is a community of over 2,000 businesses, nonprofits, and cultural leaders designed to empower people to take action to transform their careers and communities in a positive way. All of this and more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. Hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. All while broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Dailymotion, Apple News, 2 different mobile apps, a smart television app, and at digitaltrends.com/live. So wherever you're finding us, you can join in the conversations that we get to have today, and we're going to get it started right now. I'm Greg Nibbler here with Drew Prindle. Hello, Drew.
How's it going, Greg?
Doing well, starting the show off just like we have every show forever, it feels like. Coronavirus has canceled something else again, and that's what we're getting into.
Goodness.
So, I mean, it is just constant, and every day there's something new with this, and this is the threat of the coronavirus, rather, canceling things. I've got a litany of ones to talk about, but the big one being right now, E3 reportedly being canceled for this year. This is the huge gaming convention. They haven't officially said it, but multiple media outlets are reporting that it is getting canceled, so it does look like this is the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big bummer to see another one of these shows canceled, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I think of all of them that have been canceled, E3 is the most well set up to just do this all remotely. Like, they'll still put out all the awesome trailers. They can probably hold a few big announcements just like they would have. It'll just happen from individual companies instead of, like,
Instead of everybody all at once.
Yeah, all in one big auditorium.
I mean, the one thing that I could see being, as far as products actually that people could get their hands on would be if PlayStation or
Yeah,
Xbox
that's
had
true.
something there, just for at least journalists to like try it out before this fall. Maybe they'll have to figure out something else to do that. But it is a big convention.
Yeah.
And this isn't until June. So to give you an idea, in case people don't know, this is actually scheduled for June 9th to June 11th. So they're already canceling it this far out, and it's just another sign, I guess, of just all of these things where nobody wants to be the one to put on a convention right now. A couple of other things of note: Coachella moved to October. I don't know if that really matters to anybody, but Elon Musk actually posted Coachella should postpone itself until it stops sucking. That's what Elon Musk said, but that's just another one there. But on the tech side of things, also you have the New York Auto Show, which is moved to August. So that's kind of one of the other trends, are conventions moving to different times.
As if things are things going to be better in August?
That's the thing, yeah.
This is just like a indefinite postponement.
Or do you just pull the plug on it, like MWC, like South by Southwest, E3? Again, the official word from E3 hasn't come out, but it's a lot of very verified sources are saying that it's getting canceled. So, okay. Actually, this is official just before we went on air. So officially, E3 has canceled it. I'm taking a look at their Twitter account right now. Looking that it looks like, yes, that it's been canceled. Yeah, devastated to share this news. This happened 8 minutes ago. Right now, after careful consultation with our member companies regarding the health and safety of everyone in our industry, our fans, our employees, our exhibitors, and our longtime E3 partners, we have made the difficult decision to cancel E3 2020. So there it is. The official word canceled right here on the show. So another one, again, bites the dust. And this is just another sign, of what are we going to do about this? How is this going to affect things? What are the ramifications in the tech industry alone? And that's certainly what we focus on. Obviously, there are much bigger, broader reaches for that. One thing, though, in association with the tech industry, because they do have such power in this, especially with communication and stemming misinformation, it is being reported that Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Twitter are said to be meeting with the White House to discuss the coronavirus. So all of those companies, whether in person or via video, are going to be discussing the coronavirus with them.
It's just a summit of all of the tech titans.
Summit of the Tech Titans, yes, the Legion of Doom, if you will, of Tech Titans, or maybe that's the Justice League, I don't know. They're all going to be meeting, though, to discuss this and discuss different reactions. Now, we don't know a lot of details on exactly what they're going to be discussing.
Yeah, I'm really curious. What?
Apparently, it's going to be led by Donald Trump's chief technology officer, Michael Kratsios. So that's apparently the White House chief technology officer. So that's who's going to be leading it. I mean, certainly when you have those big tech titans, I mean, they have a lot of control over a lot of things. I mean, everything from Amazon and delivery of goods, to social media issues.
And misinformation spread and all of that.
Misinformation.
I mean, they're already kind of working on those things, but I guess it's not a bad sign that they're all getting together.
Yeah, to figure out what they can do. Again, just another thing that's happening with this constant issue with coronavirus, and that's just what we know of right now. I mean, by the end of the day, who knows how many more things could be canceled or changed. It's a rapidly evolving thing. We try to keep everybody up to date at digitaltrends.com. I will say something else, just of note, St. Patrick's Day is pretty much canceled everywhere.
Really?
Ireland issued a cancellation. They said that
No.
there's not going to be any parades.
Oh, man.
Boston canceled theirs. Chicago canceled theirs. So just a side note of all of that stuff. We can't even go out and
Where am I going to get my green
Where are
beer?
we going to go drink in public now? Oh, never mind. So that's what's happening. Another side thing with that, but yeah, just a lot going on with coronavirus. Again, we try to keep you up to date with everything, so stay tuned to digitaltrends.com for any other news that we get. Let's go on here and talk about something else, though. Something that did happen. We do have all of the product releases that are supposed to be happening, despite the fact that these events are canceled, including Google I/O, which is suspected that maybe that's where we would get to see the Pixel 4a. And now, this isn't an official launch, but this is a leaked video showcasing what appears to be the Pixel 4a itself. And this is from a Spanish YouTube site called Tecnolike Plus. That they got their hands on it, and they're claiming that the footage is a Cuba-based cell phone workshop, where the phone has already gone on sale through unofficial channels. This is where they're saying they got this. But by all accounts, it does look pretty legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it looked like a standard issue Pixel phone, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. There wasn't a ton of detail in that video, but
yeah, not in the video itself, but they do go into some details on it. So with the Pixel 4a, and again for the A version, like the Pixel 3a, it's kind of that mid-tier version, mid to low tier, honestly, of the Pixel phone, which I like.
It's still awesome. They're still
Yeah.
great. I have a Pixel 3a. It's wonderful. It's
Really?
It's been running like a champ ever since I got it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that when companies do this,
Yeah.
when they take that and scale it down. I mean, because $1,000 or whatever the Pixel was, I don't even remember, $800 to $1,000, we'll say, depending on what one you get. That's a lot of money for a phone. That's a lot of money to shell out. So the fact that they have something that's just scaled back just a little bit.
It's really like, yeah, the specs are not a huge step down. It's just they've kind of figured out, some of the components are a little bit cheaper. They've been manufacturing it for a while. Yeah, so it's slight bump down in quality, but big drop down in price usually.
Yeah, and this one supposedly, again, if all this proves out to be true, will have a 12 megapixel lens and flash. It'll have a fingerprint sensor, USB Type-C. It still keeps the headphone jack, so that's kind of a cool one. 5.81-inch 1080p screen. So yeah, you're not going to get a 4K screen probably on something like this, but just the fact that it has all of that is pretty great. An 8 megapixel selfie camera on top of that. And these are the specs that we're seeing reported: 6 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of onboard storage. Something interesting that it could support 2 SIM cards. So you could have 2 different numbers, I guess, in theory, going to your phone.
Sweet. You can have your work phone and your regular phone all in the same
in one
thing.
phone. Yeah,
that
would be. I would definitely be into that. That's pretty cool. Also, the Snapdragon 730 chipset. So again, you get kind of the year-old stuff, but still a great phone if this is all true. Now, we don't know when it would arrive, but the other thing that's being reported is the possible price. I think Evan Blass posted this thing, $399. $399.
Which is what they were selling the Pixel 3a for when it first came out. So yeah.
Yeah, if it sticks around in that price range. Also, of note, though, going back to the coronavirus side of things, these were being apparently manufactured in Vietnam, which has done, from all reports that I've seen, a pretty good job of keeping itself closed off from a lot of the coronavirus issues. I'm sure they do have some, but I guess they closed the borders with China immediately. And supposedly the manufacturing, again, there's a lot of reports coming out, but supposedly the manufacturing there is still going pretty well right now. So it's not as much of an issue, supply issue, as other
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, so there's, again, that's the Google Pixel 4a. So some of the leaks that we're seeing with that, and whether we get to see the full Google announcement, we'll have to determine how they're going to handle that too, because Google I/O is canceled. But all of these companies do have the ability to live stream and let people know what's going on. So hopefully we'll see something sooner than later when it comes to that. But you can check all of that out at digitaltrends.com. All right, continuing on here, let's talk about TikTok. Drew, do you
Always.
TikTok?
I actually deleted it recently because it was just too addictive. I was like, I don't need this to even tempt me.
Really?
Yeah.
It was too much that you were on it. So you canceled it, but a lot of people have not. But there's been some issues with cancellation in association with security. So the United States military, I believe all the branches, I'd have to double check, but I think all the branches have banned service people from using TikTok. A lot of governmental agencies have banned it, and that's all because of security concerns and about how much data TikTok shares with the Chinese government.
Yeah, because it's a Chinese app. It's
It's based in China, and there's a lot of speculation, and some of the speculation TikTok's denied it, but that they're sharing this data with the Chinese government.
Yeah, and that's just one small example of this larger, just like general widespread fear that Chinese-built devices are sending data back to the Chinese government, right? And TikTok is kind of just like the most widely used example of that, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's weird. It's probably sending some amount of data back. We don't know how detailed that data is. It's not gonna, know your whereabouts on any given day, or like, what you're buying or anything super important. It's really just what videos you
What
look
videos
at.
you're consuming?
I don't know. It could be way smarter than I'm giving it credit for.
Well, that's part of what they're doing right now. So this announcement is that they're opening up a transparency center in the United States to try to quell some of the concern over TikTok and what they're doing. So this is going to be an LA-based facility, and here's what we know. It's going to open in May, and it'll permit outside experts to observe the way the platform moderates content. So what that exactly means, I don't know. Whether you're going to walk in and it's like a fishbowl where you're just looking down at the people. Oh, they're observing the content.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, they are.
Well, they observe that very well. They moderate
Matrix-style
that one.
streams of data just coming down a screen.
With a team all
Yes.
typing away at computers, moderating content. They said they'll also share details of its source code and independent security measures. So again, does that do something? Like, would that actually quell some of that?
I mean, hopefully.
Yeah.
It seems like a good move. However, I will say, normally when you want like oversight, you're not the person who gets to make the oversight program.
Yeah.
There's some sort of third-party oversight committee that you have zero control over.
Right.
It sounds like TikTok has the reins for this one, and they're deciding what people get to see. So I don't know how well this is really going to quell those fears just for that reason.
Yeah, and this is the first time that I think we've seen a company do something like this, where they open up a center just for people to go look at a transparency center. I mean, that itself sounds like something it sounds very 1984-ish. Yeah. I mean, I've got to say, like, no, come to our transparency center. Everything's fine here. And it's going to be a bunch of happy people telling them how they're moderating content. But yeah, this is what they're doing. So this is going to open up in LA. It'll open up in May. Hopefully, we can go in there and take a look at this. I would love it if Digital Trends could get down there just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to know how it's even operating or what goes on with this. Is this something that people care about? Because I'm sure whoever's on TikTok is going to be deleting their account or restarting it based upon this. But that is what we're seeing right now.
Yeah,
So
time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. We've got an article up at digitaltrends.com. You can go there and take a look at this and let us know your thoughts on TikTok. All right, follow Digital Trends on TikTok, by the way. Let's go to another story here. This has to do with SpaceX, and this is pretty cool. So we know that SpaceX has a goal of sending astronauts back up to the International Space Station, and they're going to do it, through this private partnership with NASA, this private company partnering with NASA, SpaceX, and they said that the COO, Gwynne Shotwell, actually said on Tuesday that they're targeting May to send up astronauts in the Crew Dragon capsules. Drew, how do you feel about this?
I mean, super exciting, that's awesome that we have a private company doing manned launches, and that's a pretty significant step for just human space travel in general.
Right.
However, May seems very ambitious.
It does seem ambitious.
And SpaceX also has a track record of making these big promises that stuff's going to happen in the very near future, and then it kind of doesn't really always pan out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that you do kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, they have been doing a lot of tests, and apparently the test results have been pretty positive associated with that. And that's good that they're doing a lot of tests, a lot of test flights and escape tests and all kinds of different things with it. But yeah, that's what they're targeting. So this would be again another test launch, and I don't think this would necessarily be the complete one. It's that they're a little unclear on that, whether they do a test launch or actually send them to the International Space Station. But I think the mission would actually be that. So
wow.
So that's a pretty huge accomplishment if they are able to put this up. Now this is just the first part of some of their plans. So this is actually sending real astronauts. There's also the private astronauts, which is rich people. So there's that other part too. So tourists are going to be going up in a couple of different missions that they have set up. One of them is going to be to orbit the Earth, like for a few days, and another one is to go to the International Space Station. They're going to send, I think, 4 people to it.
That's awesome. Yeah, this really is building the foundations for their manned spaceflight program that they've been talking up. You know, they want to send people to Mars. They want to do those like suborbital, like super fast flights where you're not flying in a plane, you're flying in a rocket.
Yeah.
And it gets you to wherever you're going in like an hour
I'm
or whatever.
totally down with that. I would run that.
So they've got big plans for putting people in these rockets, and this
Yeah.
is kind of the first step. This is the proving grounds.
Would you take one of those rockets, the actual domestic travel rockets?
I mean, if they get figured, I don't want to be an early adopter for that one.
Yeah. I
but
figure, what's the difference? I mean, between a plane or a rocket? I mean, if it's going to go down, what's the...
yeah, but like statistically, rockets blow up way more than than planes do.
That's true. Okay, you got me on that one. Well, that is what the SpaceXO is working on. So a lot of stuff that you can read there at digitaltrends.com about that, and let us know what you think about SpaceX's missions. I will say this: Elon Musk did also post something saying that he only wants to get humans to Mars before he dies. So he's kind of changed it up a little bit.
I thought he wanted to die.
He wanted to die on
Mars.
Mars. Now he's just changing it up a little bit, saying he at least wants to get humans.
It's those big promises.
Yep, there
and
it
then
is.
dialing it back later on.
What can we believe anymore?
Keeps on moving the goalposts, Elon.
Well, read that at digitaltrends.com.
Hey, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day.
Yes, indeed. Today we are taking a look at, well, there it is. Hello. I found you again. This is our product of the day. So this is what we're seeing right now. This is the Rexing Dashcam V1P. So when we're talking about dash cams, I want to give you all of the different statistics and different things that are associated with this. So this is a wide-angle dual-channel Wi-Fi dashcam. And now dashcam for your vehicle is important. I'll say this from a personal standpoint. I got one. I had an incident where I wish I would have had a dashcam that happened to me personally, and now I have one in my car, but mine isn't even as nice as this. So this is actually a really good one. So here's how it actually works. You would have it sitting on the front of your car, and then clearly, now we're looking at me. It sits up there just like that. It's nice, it's discreet. It's got a supercapacitor and a parking monitor. So supercapacitor, that's a cool word, but here's what it is. It's a parking monitor. So when you're not there, it will notice when there's vibrations, and it will actually turn on and start recording. And it'll do this for quite a while. You can even connect via your phone, so you don't even have to take it down to upload your footage. If you say you saw something crazy, you want to get the footage of it, you can have it upload directly through your phone via Wi-Fi. So that's a pretty great thing you can do right there. It can be recorded in 1, 2, or 3 minute intervals, and then so each time it does that, it just starts a new track essentially. And it'll do this for a long time because it's got a 256 gig memory. So that means it can store up quite a lot of stuff. Eventually, then it'll just overwrite the older ones. But this is why these things are so great, and I highly recommend people get a dash cam for their car. It's worthwhile. It's one of those things where you may not know you're ever going to need it, but you'll wish you had it when something happens. And so right now, it's on sale for $129.98, and you can pick that up by clicking the link that we have right below there. So wherever you're watching, just click on that link, follow that bit.ly link, and that'll take you directly to this deal. Again, that's the Rexing Dashcam for our product of the day. All right. Definitely want one of these to go through a burger.
Yeah, I need one pretty bad.
So yeah, you want to get one of these. All right. So we've got more coming up though, and I know we need to actually talk about some of our guests that are coming up. We've got some great segments that are going to be here on the show today, and Luke Larson's going to be in here talking about how PCs are affected by everything going on with coronavirus. I mean, there's no getting around it. But before we go to break, I want to say thank you to Drew Prindle.
Yeah, always a pleasure, man.
Hello, Drew. Thank you. And coming up, we've got Riley Wynn, who went out onto the streets of Portland. He braved the streets to bring you this next segment that we're going to be doing after the break, which is Fantasy Fights. It's Marvel versus DC. He picks two characters, he asks random people on the street what they think. It's pretty entertaining. You're going to want to see that, so stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
What's up, guys? I'm Riley Wynn, and this is Fantasy Face-Off, a game where we suggest spectacular showdowns and let people determine the winner. Let's see what they had to say. Who would win in a fight, Black Panther or the Green Lantern?
Black Panther.
Why?
Cats.
Wait, why again?
Because of cats.
I would hope Black Panther, just because Green Lantern sucks in every way. So.
The Green Lantern, man. He's got the ring. He's got the ring. I mean, Black Panther is enhanced, but Green Lantern is from Mars, bro.
Yes, Black Panther.
I would say Green Lantern just because literally he can imagine a cage and be like, oh, there you are.
Who would win in a fight, Batman or Spider-Man?
Batman all the way.
Why?
Because, I mean, Spider-Man's a kid, so Batman, he's rich enough he could just shut the school down, you know? So.
But Spider-Man has like actual superpowers and isn't just a rich guy.
Batman has money.
Oh, snap.
Batman.
Why?
Because he has all his nifty gadgets, and I'm sure that he could, I don't know. Sorry.
Okay, you said Batman. Why do you think Batman would win?
Older, more mature, got a lot of, like he said, got a lot of tools in his belt. So
Spider-Man. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Why?
Spider-Man's the sickest. I think he's the best.
Thor versus Shazam. Who's winning that fight?
Thor.
Why?
Better box office success.
He's got the hammer. He's got the hammer.
I don't know that much about Shazam, but I would go with Thor because he seems cooler.
Seems cooler.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty cool guy.
Shazam is like a little kid who wears something and then becomes an old kid, right?
Yep.
Thor.
Shazam.
Why?
Just because his name is way cooler.
Who would win in a fight, Captain America or Wonder Woman?
That's a tough one. She has the lasso of truth, and he's got that shield made of vibranium.
Gal Gadot would be pretty distracting, so.
Captain American, he just basically just has like strength and a shield, and she's like a god, so I think gods will win on that.
Her bands are literally holding her back, technically. So if you read the comics, it says like if you take it off, it's like she's actually way more stronger than Zeus himself. So yes, technically she'll be out of Captain
Well,
America.
she's proven herself to beat every man out there, so why not?
Wonder Woman.
Why?
Because she's a woman.
Who would win in a fight, Superman or Thanos?
Thanos like destroyed a bunch of stuff, didn't it?
Thanos.
Why?
Because, you know, he's got all the. As long as he's got his hand and he can snap his fingers, man, he can make anything happen.
Thanos.
Why?
because he was able to kick the Avengers' ass.
I hear so much about Thanos.
Why do you think Thanos?
I don't know. I think he's gonna crush him with like just one thumb, so or one finger. I don't really think Superman can stand a chance, to be honest. I mean, it took all of Marvel to beat Thanos.
The Flash versus the Hulk.
Oh,
There's not a chance. The Hulk's slow.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Flash then because speed beats muscle.
if he stops to actually fight, I think the Hulk would get him. But like, you know, if he just takes off running, then the Hulk doesn't stand a chance.
Oh, the Flash versus the Hulk. The Flash.
Why?
He's so fast.
He's so fast.
I don't know. I feel like he can run circles around him, and the Hulk will just get dizzy and be like, you know how he gets angry, like, oh, I can't do this anymore, and gives up.
Well, guys, for the first time in a long time, it looks like DC beat Marvel. If there's a matchup you guys want to see, let us know in the comment section from wherever you're watching, or hit me up on Twitter at AllRideDoIsWin. Until next time, I'm Riley Wynn with Digital Trends, and thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and again, thank you everybody for joining us, whatever platform you're watching on. Hit that subscribe button. That's a great way to get the notifications when we do go live, and we always keep you up to date on technology and artificial intelligence, and the utilization of it is such an exciting topic to cover. And to do so right now, we've got certainly an expert. We've got Daniel Hernandez, who's the Vice President of Data and AI for IBM. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
I love talking to IBM about AI just because I know you've been working on it for so long and at the forefront, and everybody's familiar with Watson and some of the other things that you've been doing, but there's so many different projects that you cover, and I want to talk about something that you actually announced a couple of years ago. If you can kind of bring us up to speed on what we're going to be discussing here today.
No doubt, and thanks for the opportunity. So consider IBM's role in seminal moments in artificial intelligence, and it'll be hard not to cite the use of games and the advancement of technology through games. Starting in 1997 with Deep Blue beating Garry Kasparov, we really demonstrated the power of compute against basically math problems. In 2011, when we unveiled Watson, it was a demonstration really on the power of Q&A systems to solve more open-ended games. And now we're benefiting in virtual assistants, especially inside of the enterprise, which is where we focus largely because of that work. And a couple of years ago, we announced a machine that was capable of debating human beings. And we demonstrated that machine at Think last year in February. And the announcement that we're making today is focused on the availability of technology that allowed that machine to debate, that we've graduated into Watson.
And with that, moving to that side of things to where people are going to have access to that is definitely something that I want to cover too. But getting into the actual tech of this, being able to debate a human and what that takes and how that actually transpires, can you talk just to a little bit? I know it's very complicated, but just a little bit to at least the surface level of the technology that enables something like this to happen.
So Debater is really kind of a demonstration of the power of natural language processing. And advancements in natural language processing that we were able to make through the hard work and blood, sweat, and tears of our research staff in IBM Research. If you were to distill the critical capabilities that allowed that machine to do what it did, which was debate human beings, constructing arguments, creating narrative around those arguments, making sure those arguments were largely defensible, it comes down to four things. One, you need advanced sentiment analytics to deal with things like idioms and sarcasm and that kind of stuff. Second, you need accurate, highly effective ways of summarizing text. You can summarize, but can you summarize and get the most salient points? That's kind of tricky. So that's the second thing. The third thing is around advanced topic clustering. So essentially, clustering topics or clustering documents in real time into salient topics so you could do information retrieval better. And on a similar bent, the fourth thing is really around document classification, more accurate methods for doing that. So Debater really was a demonstration of advancement in each of those core areas. And our announcement is the start of a series of announcements we intend to make this year, where we're taking those four critical capabilities and making them available in Watson, starting with the work that we've done around advanced sentiment analytics.
Looking at that from a couple of different standpoints that you brought up too, and talking about how to have a conversation with a human, because there's so many nuances, there's so many references that we make, and you kind of brought that up in there, and the advancement of something that an AI that would be able to understand that could be used, I would think, in so many different situations. Could you speak to just a little bit of some of the different situations that you could see that going into? You talked about virtual assistants, but I'm sure there's more beyond that.
Right. So let's talk about maybe advanced sentiment analytics a little bit and why that's particularly important. If you and I were to have a conversation, we're going to use idioms throughout our conversation. I would say things like, a drop in the bucket. I would say, perhaps I'm all ears, right? Historically, that's been difficult for machines to understand what my intent is, right? So just on a simple case of idioms, and in the English language, there are thousands of them. Being able to understand my intent has largely been something machines hadn't been able to do. The advancements we're making, suddenly you now can do. And if you were to think about applications like in customer service, where a desire of any business really is to increase client satisfaction and more conveniently address needs, usually questions or inquiries about things like account, idioms come into play. For the most part, we haven't been able to contend or deal with that nuance in language. And so by bringing idiom support, what we call our sentiment shifters, which is understanding, like if I were to say, hey, you're hardly helpful, the combination of understanding idioms and sentiment shifters within this context of advanced analytics helps us in this case of customer service, whether it's through virtual assistant, a contact center through voice, we can understand our intent and remediate whatever that issue is that caused that person to interact with us to begin with.
Wow. When you bring up the idiom side of things and things like just like you brought up, over the moon, that's something that I would imagine would be really difficult to train an algorithm to actually figure out and understand that no matter what you did. So is that part of some human interaction with the programming to where you're out in the world, you're like, oh, that's a good one, I better put that into the program?
So idioms are a little bit tricky because there are a certain set of idioms per language. Each culture has perhaps, the UK is going to have a different set of idioms than we are. And not all idioms actually are impactful when it comes to sentiment. So you got to understand all of those, degrees of gray. You got to understand idioms by language in order for them to be put to use, and ultimately for you to derive, hey, am I irate? And as such, I should talk to an agent straight away in the case of our customer service, or am I extremely positive and, I'm liking the interaction, I should continue as I am in the call flow. So, Yeah, our understanding of idioms is kind of a language-specific thing and even a culture-specific thing that we've got to, that in this particular case, we've trained Watson to understand.
What about sarcasm? Is that anything that you've tried to tackle with this?
Yeah, idioms are a way to express sarcasm, right? So we use idioms to be sarcastic often. And so in so much as we're using idioms to be sarcastic, yeah, the machine and our processing of language will be able to detect that.
Wow, that's incredible. And this now, going back to the announcement that you're talking about, so this is going to be available in Watson. What does that mean for everybody out there?
So anybody consuming Watson, especially our natural language understanding APIs and Watson Discovery, which is tackling basically all the trying to understand and take action against the corpus of business documents representing 80% of the data. Suddenly, that data now is available to you. You can process it accurately and begin to take actions from it. So this is a huge deal for us. We're totally focused on business, being able to unlock the majority of the content out there through this, process it, train our models, deliver better customer service, deliver better risk and compliance is going to be a big thing for our customers.
Looking at where you're at right now, which is just really an incredible, an incredible achievement as far as where you're at with this particular type of AI. Where do you see it in 5 years with all of these advancements that you're getting?
Oh man, it's so hard to even predict. If I were to predict where I would have been 5 years from now and what Watson was capable of doing, I don't know what the answer would have been. In the case of Project Debater, which is the source of some of this technology, we started that as a grand challenge, similar to how Watson started many years ago in 2012. I mean, had you asked me where I would have expected it to be commercialized, what the potential use cases are, I probably couldn't accurately respond. I would pontificate, I would anticipate, but I don't know. What I am sure of is the next major frontier that we're going to be focusing on is language. This is the start of that. We're going to unleash this in the wild, so we're going to let customers kind of decide and vote with their own feet on how they're going to use it, and they'll share through their use what they're finding valuable or not, and they're going to inspire us to perhaps tackle problems in language that we're not even anticipating today.
I got to say, that's probably pretty exciting for you for something that you've been working on this long, and then now to set it out there and just to see what people do with it. I mean, that's got to be an interesting aspect of this job.
100%. It's always cool. The funnest part of their job is actually just talking to customers on like, hey, we anticipated, we thought, and they come back to us and say, well, yeah, those sound like good ideas. Here's what we did. And usually always it's surprising, really inspiring. We don't build technology for it just to sit on the shelf. We love it when customers get inspired to use it in ways we never anticipated.
Nice. Well, Daniel, I want to say thank you so much for joining us here today to talk about it. Really excited for you and to see where this AI can go. I mean, this is good for everybody. I mean, we all want virtual assistants or different ways that AI can communicate with us in much better fashions, and this is the start of that. Like you said, understanding language, so much to unravel there. And I want to let everybody know, too, is there anywhere they can go to learn more about this?
Yeah, so go to IBM.com. You're going to see this featured there. And just try it out. It's the natural language understanding APIs, Watson Discovery. Check it out. Give us your feedback. We're always listening. We can't wait to hear how this is going to be used.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you.
All right, so fascinating use case, and we love talking to IBM about this because they really are at the forefront of a lot of artificial intelligence and different use cases for it, and this Project Debater sounds fascinating. I'm gonna go there and check that out after the show. All right, we've got more coming up though. We've got to continue on. We do have Luke Larson who's gonna join us to talk about PCs and their effect on coronavirus, or vice versa, coronavirus's effect on PCs, right? It's everywhere. So we're gonna talk about that. We've got more coming up. Stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and again, thank you everybody for joining us. We like to keep you up to date on what is going on in technology, and certainly the coronavirus is affecting everything. It's affecting all of our lives in every single aspect, but the PC industry also being hit. Let's talk about that. Luke Larson, hello, Luke.
Hey, Greg.
Hey.
Hate to bring this up again.
Yeah, have you heard of this? Have you seen this? Anything about this coronavirus? What's going on there? So we do cover, though, how it's affecting so many different industries.
Yeah.
And the PC industry is one that I guess is particularly getting hit.
Yeah, I was curious about how exactly the coronavirus was affecting what 2020 was shaping up to be for the PC. So I went around digging for information, talked to some analysts, and got some, I think, information about how that's happening and how the coronavirus is affecting the PC industry at a certain specific point in time that kind of sucks for the PC.
And why is that? Is that it's the time of the year, or it's the phase of the industry, or?
So I mean, if you've been following the PC industry for the past few years, it's not exactly been on the up and up. Kind of struggling. A little, a slow decline is kind of
not a lot of
how
innovation.
It's been. Yeah, and just as more and more innovation moves to an investment moves to the mobile space, the PC is not as much in the spotlight. But this year, I was listening to just a couple months ago. It feels like a long time ago. A couple months ago, before this coronavirus stuff happened, listening to all the investor calls for companies like Microsoft and Intel, and they were all really pumped about this first half of the year, and seeing a bump from the Windows 7 end of support. So a lot of people out there are actually still using Windows 7 as of earlier this year, especially people who are in corporations or organizations. So they were expecting a lot of people to bump up to Windows 10, go out there, make purchases, buy new computers, and they're actually expecting a little bump in PC sales because of that. And I was like, oh, so that's going into this year. That's what everybody was expecting,
right?
As kind of a nice little
a buffer year, where you're gonna get some
buffer,
get some more sales, and everything's gonna be really nice, smooth sailing. Maybe start this whole PC thing back up again.
Yes.
Start some upward growth, but not so much.
That's not so much. Coronavirus happened, and I was talking to an analyst about this. They're expecting a 7% drop in revenue in the PC industry. And the little bump from the Windows 10 refresh was supposed to dampen that a little bit, but now it's just like a full out, painful drop for these companies, and it's primarily a supply chain issue. I asked if it was like a more of a, are people kind of hesitant to buy new things?
Yeah, like an economic issue maybe.
Yeah. But according to this analyst I talked to, it's primarily a supply chain and production issue. So we've heard about this all for the past weeks a lot, but just trouble with all the factories in China and getting everything online and actually pushing out products that are supposed to come out this year. That's the primary problem with these a bump that they were expected to get.
And that's such a problem for a lot of things, but PCs in particular too. As we're talking about that, and I think something that a lot of people forget. We actually just put out a video kind of explaining some of this, just about supply chains. Like you may think, oh well, Microsoft just makes all of their computers, and that's how it works, or HP or whoever it is, But really, those are all components from a bunch of different suppliers that come from different places, and each one of them is necessary. So if one goes down, that could stop the production line on everything else.
Yeah, or
based on one tiny thing.
Or if you have to pivot to find another, another factory to supply something, it can severely delay your product. So that's what we're expecting, and so. This is what we're going into the first half of the year.
Yeah.
And then there's also the second half of the year, this is where the stuff that I was like, 2020 was going to be a really cool year for the PC, because I was expecting all these new things to happen and things that could potentially actually push the PC industry back into an exciting time again, and possibly have really long-term effects on the future.
Yeah.
And there's a few I'm thinking of. The obvious one is dual screen devices and Windows 10X. Those are slated for later this year. We've seen the Surface Neo and a couple other kind of prototype products. Kind of oh wow, the PC is actually trying something that almost on time with what the smartphone industry is doing with foldable devices, foldable screens.
Right.
And it seems like, we're kind of on top of things with that. And that could, I think certainly Microsoft and Intel and all their, partners, they're all hoping that this is going to push, push us forward and into the future. It's going to be the next era of devices, and
now it's just getting stunted during this entire thing.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that we don't know, but a number of these exciting developments, they could either get delayed, or they could come out, but they could just come out and really be dampened. Like the excitement could be dampened because the rollout could be really tough, and production issues could be really tough. But it's not just those dual screen devices. You also have something that's more recent or upcoming is the new AMD Ryzen 4000 processors.
Right, which is supposed to be challenging Intel and.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a really big year for AMD, finally getting into this laptop space and actually having an actual chance of taking back some of the laptop space, which Intel has just dominated in for so long. They announced these chips at CES. They were supposed to roll out, shortly after that, and I have to imagine they're facing a lot of challenges with production, especially on a new product like this.
Right. Yeah, and what that's going to mean going forward, because we don't know when it's going to pick back up, when things are going to be going back to normal.
Yeah,
it's hard to say. And actually, we have some breaking news too that just came in while we were talking about this, and it is this: the World Health Organization has officially classified COVID-19, which is the coronavirus, as a pandemic. So it's officially classified as that. So here's the quick definition on what pandemic means. So you have outbreak, which carries the same definition of an epidemic, which an epidemic refers to an increase, often sudden, in the number of cases of a disease above what is normally expected in that population in that area. So say something in China, in the Wuhan province, that was probably starting off as an epidemic. A pandemic basically refers to something that is spread over several countries or continents, usually affecting a large number of people. And we've gotten to the point where it's officially declared that as a pandemic. So that is breaking news there about COVID-19 and the coronavirus. So we'll have to see how that affects anything else going forward.
Officially a pandemic.
Officially
That's
a pandemic.
I can see the headlines already.
Yep, they're starting right now. That's the thing. Like, this stuff happens so quick, and we're live, and we're getting live information as it happens, live updates as it goes on. So we just want to make sure that we get those to you and try to get them to you as quickly as we can. But yeah, that's another example. So with that being said, going forward with these PCs and how that industry is being hit, we just don't know where it's all going to shake out.
Yeah, and I asked if there had been something like this in the past, and the analyst talked about SARS, for example, and how that affected some things, and the amount of time it took to get back to sort of normal development and normal production. And I asked basically if the coronavirus was solved today, if everything was it was starting to pick up right now,
came up with a cure, and that's it.
Yeah, and we were slowly starting to get back into it. It probably still wouldn't be until the beginning of next year that we were back to normal. Kind of growth and production and stuff like that. So, and who knows what could happen in the rest of this year. So that kind of gives you the example of like how big of an effect this could have and how long it'll take to come back from it.
Yeah.
And that's if we started right now, and who knows what'll happen in the next couple of months.
Who knows where it'll go.
So,
well, it's a lot to stay up on, and I know you have this piece out at some point here too.
Just later this week. Yeah.
Later this week. So follow along at Digital Trends. Luke, thank you.
Yep.
And again, it's analyzing all facets of technology and whatever's affecting it, so we want to let you know that. But up next, let's talk about artificial intelligence. I love talking about AI in different ways that it is being regulated. How are we going to handle AI? It's advancing so quickly, and to do so, we've got, actually, it's part of a new series here from Digital Trends, our Women with Bytes series, celebrating women in technology, but more importantly, talking about AI as well. So we've got Fallon Fatomi who's going to join us, the founder and CEO of Node. So that's coming up next. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thank you very much for joining us wherever you're watching. We do appreciate it, and we'd like to keep you up to date on technology, and certainly artificial intelligence and the advancement of it is exciting, but also it can be a little bit scary. How are we going to manage it? How is it being regulated? And that's something we're going to discuss in part right now. We've got Falon Fatomi, the founder and CEO of Node. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
You are such an expert in this. I'm really excited to get your thoughts and opinions about all of this. I did want to give everybody just a little bit of a background too and talk about Node and kind of your journey into this.
Sure. So Node is the first horizontal AI platform as a service, meaning we enable any developer to jump straight to the benefits of all the data and infrastructure that normally takes millions and years to build in-house, and be able to apply the sophisticated technology right away on actual business use cases and business applications. So you can kind of think of Node as like the Twilio for AI. Our mission is to essentially make AI as self-serve as possible so that it can be used not only by any developer to power game-changing features in their applications that then build powerful consumer experiences, but also to enable line of business users to better understand what's likely to occur, whether it be, which customers are likely to churn, which key talent is likely to leave, what product offers to put in front of their consumers that are most likely to become bigger customers, and make that accessible in as easy a way as possible.
Which, access to such an incredibly powerful tool like that and this democratization of access to artificial intelligence and different use cases for decision making is huge. But as a whole, as the industry, definitely people have concerns about how AI is being used and part of the regulation of that. And I wonder if you could maybe comment on that and give us kind of an idea of what the industry is at as a whole and what some of the big decisions they have to make associated with it.
So I think it's a massive responsibility, any founder or any organization that's thinking about incorporating AI, to really consider a very strong diversity of perspectives around the table as to really not so much the AI, algorithms and models as people love to talk about and is super sexy, but really around the actual input data that's being used, because that's where the majority of the concerns and issues, unrealized biases might be. Classic example of that is there was a credit rating application, the Apple Card, where women were not getting approved because it turns out there was just a bias in the actual credit score itself. So the data that was being used to then generate, a credit score was not enabling a lot of women to be able to get credit cards at a high limit because they're normally dependents.
Wow.
Which is something that you wouldn't realize, right? So I think that's where it really is important to ensure that you have you have diversity in terms of the people building these technologies, that you are really understanding what are the inherent biases in the data or how we might be thinking about a problem, and then from there we can then start to understand where do potential regulations need to be. But we build technology to enable accessibility and customization, sort of democratization of this technology, so that people can apply it to their own data sets, to their own business use cases, so that we can learn quickly and then ensure that we are essentially building systems that are ultimately better for all of us personally and professionally.
I think that's really interesting, the input use cases being a lot of the issue, because that's certainly something that we've seen across the board in different issues associated with diversity and lack of diversity when it comes to programming AI. I mean, we've seen it with facial recognition technology and some of the biases that were clearly evidenced in that. And you'd have communities that are banning it outright until it's fixed. And talking about that, how do we bring that back up to speed and get it to where these inherent biases aren't there, and we can actually just start using the tool and use it as a whole across all the boards?
So I think it really is dependent on the use case. So for example, in trying to understand, which of your customers are likely to become your bigger customers, maybe there's less of a bias sort of concern there, because you're just trying to understand what makes your best customers the best customers, which a system like this can just kind of figure out. And then help you identify more like that, or what products to put in front of them. But when it relates to use cases such as, I want to hire more employees like my best employees, where maybe your best employees happen to be all men or happen to be of a particular, ethnicity or background. That's where it gets really important to set up tools, which is what we do, provide tools and controls and filters, and essentially what we call is like sort of strategies to ensure that you're able to say, I want to hire more employees like my best employees, but I want to ensure that those employees are more diverse. And so that's where you can actually use the same technology to abstract away, hide the names, hide some of the attributes that tend to actually lead these systems to having more bias. Or perhaps just build completely separate models of my best employees who are women, my best employees who are men. I mean, it's a very sort of complicated issue, but that's really where you have to sit down and deeply understand the business problem or the business outcome you're trying to predict, and then ensure you have a wide range of perspectives to sort of help you dial in and understand what's the right input data to then be able to make a decision, say, going forward.
Well, and it sounds like enabling all those different ways that you can customize it for that use case is really, really important when it comes to utilizing it. Talking about this, as a whole, and since clearly there's so many different people that are utilizing AI in different kinds of things, and as the industry as a whole, and talking to you being a leader in this, how do you feel that regulation should be implemented? Like, say, once we get rid of this as far as the input and say that's solved or as best as possible, what's the next step for AI?
I think there's still a lot that we don't know. We really are in nascent phases of leveraging and applying this technology and seeing what it can do. So, being born and raised in Silicon Valley, worked in Silicon Valley my whole life, I'm not a huge fan of putting regulations on technologies where we don't even know what it's capable of, right? Like, who would have thought that Google search would end up powering self-driving cars? Makes total sense today, right?
Right.
But that's like, 10, 20 years later. So, I think that we still have a lot to learn in terms of some of the regulations. I think it largely might sort of come around. There's certain industries that are already heavily regulated where autonomous decision making, you have to be able to explain, why someone doesn't get a loan, or why their credit approval or credit card, they're not getting approved for it, those sorts of things. I think there's a reason for that regulation, and I think those kinds of industries will have to figure out how to evolve the regulation as the technology gets more sophisticated and the input data and signals get more sophisticated. But there's a huge field of research around explainability right now, which is something that our research team focuses heavily on, to help people understand how are these systems coming to these decisions? What are the signals that they're identifying? And I think through that, we're going to learn a lot and then be able to also understand which use cases we maybe need to have more heavy regulation around and not have these systems make automated decisions,
right,
but rather surface insights for then humans to ultimately exception handle.
Well, it is such a massive amount of data that's going into these, to really, for any human to really understand it. I mean, it's almost, you have to create an AI to help understand the AI. It almost seems like that.
Yes.
Really, is that what it is?
That's exactly right. We have a service that's specifically, looking and analyzing input data, output data, looking at the underlying, what's the neural net identifying as the different signals and layers and features. But yeah, I mean, that's really what it is, AI on top of the AI.
One more question I had, just since you brought up input data, and just to try to understand that a little bit more for everybody at home too, where do you harness your input data from?
So for our customers, they bring their own data.
Gotcha.
So our customers are trying to basically take their sparse, perhaps inaccurate, very limited data sets, and then identify, here's a business outcome. Like I want to understand, which of my customers are going to churn. So here are examples of my regrettably churned customers, examples of my customers that are highly tenured. No, tell me which of my customers are going to leave or stay. So it's that simple. And so our clients bring their own data, and then we also help, squeeze more juice out that data, if you will, to drive signals that otherwise would be very challenging to do with existing infrastructure as a service tools.
Well, it's fascinating, and I want to say thank you so much for joining us here today to talk about this. It's really, really interesting getting your perspective on this and where artificial intelligence is going. And I want to let everybody know, too, out there, all these businesses that want to take advantage of everything that you've built, where do we send them? How do they get to use AI?
Node.io.
Nice and simple.
Nice and simple.
Well, Fallon, thank you so much for joining us here. Really do appreciate you being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you for having me.
All right, fascinating. That's part of the fun of this show, right? We get to talk to leaders and experts in these fields, in artificial intelligence, and get her opinions directly on where it's going. Really, really interesting stuff. So we love talking about that and really appreciate Fallon being here on the show. And I know we've got more to talk about. We've got some more news. We've got some more interviews. We have TBD today. Jess and Adrian will be in here. What are they going to talk about? Well, it's TBD. You'll have to stick around for that. So stick around. We'll be right back with more Digital Trends Live. Well, hello there. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us wherever you're watching. We do appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button, share the show, let other people know about it. That is a great way to learn about tech, is by sharing. So please share. Let's talk about some technology, though. We've got to bring you up to date on some trending news and some different things that we have on site that I think you would like to know about. And the first off, we're going to talk about swarm robots. Yes, robots that swarm. That's what we're covering right now. So this is actually a new study that has come out, and it's they've got a video that actually showcases some of this. This comes from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. And what they have is a pretty impressive demonstration right there. So to the right, that's not an actual cartoon or anything like that. That's not animated. That is actual robots, and it's an overview of them and what they're doing. So what's happening is these robots, there's 100 of them, that are making decisions on their own to form different shapes and symbols. So the way it's working is this. Each robot has sensors on board. They're all given, and this is kind of really simplifying what they're doing, but the simple answer is this. Each one is able to sense where another robot is. Now they are sent an image, something that they're supposed to do, something that they're supposed to form. And they all know what that is that they're supposed to form and where it fits and what it is. But they don't know where they individually fit in it. And to determine that, they sense what is around them, where the other robots are, and then they'd figure out, well, where's the closest place I can go, you know, giving the robot an eye, that's all creepy on its own. Where's the closest place that robot can go to help satisfy the order that it's got. So if one robot is closer than the other one, they'll go around them. They'll be able to not hit each other, and that's the other key thing. They don't bump into each other when they're doing that. When you're watching that demonstration, none of them touch each other, and they all successfully form that. So why would you want robots to be doing that? Well, there's a couple of things. One, you know, they demonstrated with 100 robots in real life. They had 1,024 of them in a simulation that all worked exactly the same. And they're saying that the main idea is that you want to train these kinds of robotics for in the field, for different industries, to maybe even in the future have something that's modular, to where you could actually shape a robot depending on, or a tool depending on what situation you're encountering. And you need this kind of AI in order to do that. So that's what it's kind of a demonstration of, you know, where it goes. We'll have to see, but the fact that they can do it is really the big accomplishment right here. And as you can see, just again, if you look at that now, none of them touch each other. They all know where they're supposed to go. They analyze what's right around them and use all that real-world data to determine the action that they take. Pretty cool demonstration, pretty powerful, and that's coming from Northwestern University. We've got an article up about that if you want to read more, but definitely kind of a sign of the future of robotics. Read about that at digitaltrends.com. All right, continuing on, let's keep talking about some technology and letting you know some other things that are happening. And this is something that could be coming to a hospital near you. And it is a drone delivery system. Now, we've seen drone delivery systems be tested already in North Carolina, in San Diego, and some various other places around the United States, let alone some in other countries. But the medical side of things is one that's really advancing quickly. And there's a company called Matternet, and they've been at the forefront of this, of these drone deliveries of medical use, for medical use cases. And they showcased how they want these things to actually work. So the demonstration they showcased in a video was a blood sample being drawn. Now, that blood sample has to go to a lab to get analyzed. Usually you've got to drive that over. It could take a while. Somebody has to physically go do it. Well, now they're showing that if you had this blood sample, you program it in, you say where you want it to go, and then what you're looking at right there is one of the pods where a drone would live. And it's kind of creepy the way they designed it, but it does serve a purpose, and it opens up almost like a flower, and then the drone takes off and goes to wherever the location is that it's put in. In this particular one, I think they were saying it was about 7 miles away, to where it would show up, have another one of those things there. The drone lands, it's then secured and then securely accessed by whoever's supposed to be getting the blood sample. This could save a ton of time, and that's one of the big things with this. It saves time, energy, and when you're dealing with issues, medical use cases, that's very important. Like, you want your sample to securely get somewhere, and it may seem odd thinking that this is secure since it's a drone flying through the air with blood samples on it, but if you think about it the other way, it's somebody's got to drive them. So somebody's driving these things over, and that takes a lot longer than just sending a drone. So that's what we're looking at with this. These ones in particular have a max payload of 4.4 pounds. Anything that can fit into the box, they can take, and they're actually going to be putting this out into the world. So it is going to be going to, they said, to a number of different healthcare facilities in coming months. It's going to be a subscription service for them. They think that within a couple of years, they could have pretty much every hospital using this just to save that time. But definitely an interesting use of drones that shows where the advancement has come with those. You can read more about that at digitaltrends.com. All right, let's give you one more topic here as we go through. I'm going to let's see, what should we let you know about? I'm going to tell you about this. Oh yeah, the Germ Falcon. Yes, I said Germ Falcon. So this is something that's been around for a while, and just with this era of coronavirus that we're in, I wanted to let you know about this because they are offering their services now for free to several different airlines. So the Germ Falcon is created by a company called Dimer UVC. And this isn't something that's been tested to actually get rid of COVID-19 and coronavirus, but they think that it could probably help. And it's a way to sterilize airplanes. We've all been on airplanes, right? They can just be really dirty and gross. Who knows who's been sitting there? Who knows who's been touching everything? And this is a way to sterilize them. And this is being used in certain situations right now already, but this Germ Falcon, as it's called, uses UV rays to instantly sterilize and kill different kinds of viruses and bacteria. So they run it up and down the aisles, up and down each row, and as it's doing that, it's able to cover much more ground than somebody would be able to do with just wiping this down by hand. And they even use it for the bathroom there. And the Germ Falcon, like I said, just like saying Germ Falcon, the Germ Falcon is being offered up to a number of different U.S. airlines for free, to use for free right now. We don't know how many have taken them up on that, but I think things like this, as we see technology adapt and different thought processes associated with what's going on with the coronavirus outbreak, these are the kinds of things that I think we're going to see more of. And it's just one of those signs of the time where we don't know where everything's going to evolve. We don't know how things are going to change, but I think we can all agree things are changing rapidly as we're sitting here talking, and we don't know where it's all going to go, no matter what aspect that is. But this is something where I think sterilizations and sterilization technology is going to become much more at the forefront, and probably should, so maybe that's a good thing as a result. But the Germ Falcon is one of those that we could see used more. So you can read more about that at digitaltrends.com. All right, I know we need to get to a break because we have plenty more to talk about. Like I said, we have TBD coming up here in just a little bit, but we've also got some more interviews, and we've got Ian Schaefer, the co-founder and CEO of Kindred, who's going to join us to talk about this great organization that brings together businesses and individuals and really is there to help bring positivity and help people learn how to maximize their efforts in whatever it is their field is. So we're going to talk about that and more. Stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thank you very much for joining us wherever you're watching. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button and share the show on whatever platform you're watching on, because we get to have some great conversations here. We're going to have one of those right now. Joining us, we have Ian Schaefer, who's the co-founder and CEO of Kindred. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I want to get into talking about Kindred, just to address something at the top, since we'll probably be discussing the event, Kindred 2020, and I know, like many other conventions and pretty much everything that's going on, I know you did move your gathering. I just want to see if you could just address that for us here at the top of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we our event was originally scheduled for May 11th to the 14th. Clearly, the situations that are out there and the information that we were provided with, and I would say the information that we haven't been provided with, really made the decision obvious for us to push the event back. So we're now holding the event September 14th to the 17th at the San Diego Convention Center. And you know, what I know, and the reason why I decided to do an event where we could actually physically bring people together, is that there really is no replacement for that. And so, you know, I appreciate like the well wishes and thoughts of everyone who's, you know, talking about, you know, working from home, especially when that's a necessary step that we need to take in the face of a time of crisis. But I also know that there are lots of other steps in a lot of other areas, you know, where there is a great sense of urgency, and whether that's around you know, the battling the effects of climate change, or you know, mental health stigmas and ending those, or efforts around justice reform. We can't let those issues get sidelined, because they also affect millions and millions of people every day. So we're staying fast and staying strong, and you know, by pushing the event into September, you know, hopefully that gives us a better opportunity of bringing together even more people at a time when that is sorely needed.
And I think you're 100% right. That is needed. And all of these other issues and things can't be left by the wayside, no matter how important one thing is or another. And talking about Kindred, I want to give everybody too an idea of everything that you've got going here with this, and what maybe, going back to the beginning, maybe what your inspiration was to form this.
Sure. So one thing that I realized along the way, and my career has taken me everywhere from the entertainment business, and today is an actual interesting day, because I spent 4 years at Miramax Films. And kind of learned the value of a company that actually lives and breathes its values, as opposed to constantly contradicts them, right? And into building my own company, which I had a bootstrap ad agency that I ran for 15 years and sold back in 2010. And what I really understand is the decisions that companies make are very consequential, right? There are reverberative effects on everything from the lives of their employees to the supply chain, you know, around the world. And what I also realized along the way was we're entering into an era where trust is scarce, and people tend to trust business now to make better decisions than they do even their own governments. And when that is the case, it becomes a time where businesses need to take a stand on certain issues. Conveniently, what is also happening at the same time is that Wall Street is realizing that companies who make better decisions, and whether those are about like divesting from fossil fuels, for example, or investing in their employees' health care, like these are the kinds of long-term decisions that not only result in a sustainable world from the environmental standpoint, but a sustainable business for the next 10 years. And when you start looking at how volatile short-term markets are, there is now a desire from Wall Street to start seeing more stability. And they're encouraging companies that are public or private, you know, to invest in these kinds of areas. And so that means evolution of those kinds of companies looks a lot like transformation of their businesses, in the same way that digital disruption over the last decade forced a lot of other companies to stand up and take action, you know, even if it wasn't a self-preservational way. I think the same holds true with this. And now, they used to say doing good is good for business, and that was a quite emotional argument. It's now become a very rational one, and one that can actually increase the bottom line as opposed to, you know, taking money away from it.
What do you think has kind of led that shift, you know, from that? Because you've certainly seen a lot of different businesses with different policies, and some of them, you know, for years and years and years ignored any kind of, say, climate damage or different environmental issues or things like that. But now they're kind of being held accountable. What do you think was the shift that made that kind of made that happen?
Yeah, I think there were shifts that happened from the top down and from the bottom up, right? So from the top down, you're looking at you know, boards getting sick and tired of CEO antics that were destructive, right? And whether that was because of their outsized personalities or their bad decision-making abilities. I think, you know, there was a lot of wrestling with conscience internally. So decisions that looked like they were in the best interest of the world always took a back seat to the decision that was in the best interest of the next quarter of growth. But once they got permission to, again, like change the filter by which they make those decisions through, you started seeing those two align more closely. I think what we've also seen is the bottoms up approach, where employees are standing up and speaking out. I mean, you're starting to see unions starting to form inside of companies that are not the typical kinds of companies where unions form. That's, whether that's inside of like news organizations or inside of even startups like Kickstarter. Their employees decided to unionize, right? And so, demands for those values to align with the experience of actually working there, and you could say maybe that's been aided and abetted by a competitive labor market. Fine, so be it, whatever it takes. But I think what's also happened is this kind of radical transparency that has really been accelerated through social media, and the ability for us to kind of find, seek information, in an age of FOIA requests, for example, makes access to that information more accessible. And again, for better or worse, enables people to take action and even vote with their wallets. It also makes it easier to hit the cancel button on Twitter.
Yep.
So that's something that we reach out for. So that only just makes it more important, and is something that we built into the community in our event. That popular culture needs to be on this journey as well, because if popular culture wants these companies to make bigger, bolder, and more frequent decisions, then they've got to grant them the ability to do so without being constantly in fear of being marginalized.
Wow, there's so much that you just covered right there. I mean, and that's, no, it's great. It's a lot to take in. I don't even know which aspect to talk about next, because, bringing that in, that transparency side of things is certainly a big push right now. Like, that's what consumers want. That's what businesses are responding with, which I think is great. Going with the Kindred side of things, I want to let everybody know too, how they can be a part of the organization, how they can be a part of this, and what all it brings to somebody who does join it.
Sure. So, I mean, we're looking at this as, yes, I would say it's a movement, but it's a movement that's been already afoot, right? You've had the Business Roundtable letter over the last year, had Mark Benioff in his book. You get kind of the fallout that comes out of Davos every year in terms of like, how is this exclusive community going to address the need of people who are not represented there? Well, we're obviously trying to change that. And so the Kindred community is a very inclusive one. Our event is designed to bring together, over 2,000 leaders from the business world, the nonprofit world, and of course the world of culture. And I think if you look at who is creating content in the world of culture, it's no longer just like the big studios who are dominated by, for example, mostly white male boards, right? These are people who are creating content, from their devices, publishing to TikTok for, millions of people to consume. They have a power, and I would also argue a responsibility to be responsible with that kind of content, with the understanding of all the minds that it shapes. And they don't have something like NBC's The More You Know, kind of breathing down their neck to do those kinds of public service announcements. So how can we get people or teach people to be more responsible with the decisions they make in the office, the decisions that they make from a fundraising perspective, and how they work with corporations from a nonprofit perspective, and how you can be more responsible with the content that you create and actually unlock the version of yourself that can actually change the hearts and minds of people for the better. And so, what we encourage everyone to do is visit kindred.live. And that's a way for, if you're a corporate decision maker, you can even attend our event for free. If you're a nonprofit, you have the same opportunity. And also if you're a creator. And so, yes, there are tickets available, and we encourage people to certainly buy them. But people who do qualify, and all those qualifications are on the site at kindred.live, they will be able to be a part of this community and attend our event through any means. And so it's really exciting. And obviously we have much bigger plans, for what the brand itself stands for. But the first thing that we knew we needed to build was a community of people with an aligned interest, and also the acknowledgement that there is a whole ecosystem that needs to support this, and not just any one group of high-powered CEOs.
I think that's such a great aspect of it, the support, and everybody needs to be involved, and everybody can be involved, and it's not something that's going to be a hindrance. It's going to actually be a boon for you. It's going to be a great. That's right. And well, I want to say, Ian, thank you very much for joining us here to talk about this.
Of course.
And really,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you said kindred.live. That's the best place.
That's correct. Kindred.live, or follow us on most social media platforms at Kindred.
Great. Well, go there, check that out, everybody. And Ian, thank you very much for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right, really, really cool talking about that and just how different businesses are changing. And you know, that's kind of a sign of the times of how we change and how everybody approaches what they're doing for their companies and for consumers. And I know I need to get to a break because we have TBD coming up. We've got Jess and Adrian who are going to join us. So stick around. We'll be back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Well, hello there. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. And it is Wednesday. It is 10:20 a.m. Pacific time, which means it's time for TBD. Joining us, of course, we have Adrian Warner.
Hello, Greg.
Hello. And we have Jess Serbach.
Hello. How
Hello.
are you?
How are you doing today?
We're
wonderful.
Yeah, we're thrilled.
Yeah.
We're getting the
Thrilled.
Yeah.
thrilled to be down for TBD. I was trying to
Yeah,
put an acronym in there,
Yeah.
but I'll work on
We'll
it.
try it round.
Shoot me down.
Yeah, okay, definitely.
Sure.
Well, every week, TBD, which stands for
Yes.
we don't know, because each week it's something different. And I got to ask, what does TBD stand for this week?
This week, it's going to stand for
Technology breeds delinquents.
So we're going to be talking
Okay.
about the state of kids these days, but as you know,
Of
Greg,
kids these
since it's Wednesday, it's time for brunch.
It's time for
That's
brunch.
true. That's true. And brunch.
Brunch.
And brunch breeds. Okay, well, we're getting it in
Brunch
here.
breeds cocktails.
Brunch breeds cocktails. That's what it is. So,
Thank you,
all
thank
right,
you,
we've
thank
got
you very
much.
okay, we've got something here. Now, can I
it
ask
smells
you
delicious.
What it is that we're drinking here
Take a
today?
sip, find out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Cheers.
always scary when somebody says that, but
That's,
okay.
you know,
The real
that seemed
question,
like a safe
Greg,
thing to do.
is have you ever had Bailey's from a shoe?
Have you ever drunk Bailey's from a shoe?
Do you love me?
Because we do have an Irish
You
coffee.
fuzzy little man.
It's an Irish coffee is the drink today, everybody. That's what we're starting off right here.
That's right. And so, yeah, we're going to be discussing, as we always do on TBD, the intersection of tech and pop culture. And
Yes.
this week, as we said, talking about how technology breeds delinquency, what the kids
Yeah.
are up to these
Yeah.
days.
What are the
on
kids doing?
all
Right.
of the tech, exactly. So the story that we found this week is that there is an app in China called DingTalk, and this is owned by Alibaba. And now, with the coronavirus spread, a lot of students in China were ordered to stay home, but still maintain their studies and keep up with school. So they enlisted DingTalk to kind of manage homework and online, talking back and forth. Kind of think of it like Chinese Slack.
Okay.
It's kind of a
All
way
right.
that I was thinking about it.
Okay.
So the kids actually found out that there was a rumor floating around circulating that if the app got enough 1-star reviews in the App Store, it would get kicked off. So they did exactly that. They 1-star bombed Ding Talk. So much to the point where Ding Talk actually put out a video saying, please stop giving us 1-star reviews. It's hurting. And other people like teachers and parents who wanted their kids to stay in school started giving it 5-star reviews in retaliation. So it kind of set off this chain of kids trying to take down the man.
I kind of love that they were doing
Right?
That.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is absolutely something I would have tried to do too if I were in the same
100%.
position.
And some kids said that they'll give it 5-star reviews, but in 1-star installments.
Little geniuses.
That is great.
So our question for you, Greg, is what do you think about kids these days?
Oh, God, do we really want to
State
get
of the
into that?
kids.
I don't, I mean, the kids, I'll say this. I am glad that I didn't have access to like Facebook or TikTok or any of social media platforms like this
Oh, yeah.
when I was a kid, because I can't imagine what that's like
Yeah.
or what I would have posted
You know,
or done. I'm more not, I don't trust me.
No.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm like, I don't envy where they're at.
No, totally. It's super interesting. I actually found myself somehow chaperoning a middle school dance recently.
This is what you do on the weekend?
And I'm like, you got me. However, it was shocking to me, right? Because here I am. So it basically every time there was like two kids would come together to slow dance, an entire like rush of people would run after them with their phones and like turn on like the flashlight and videotape them.
What?
Which I'm assuming was to like just a general video or to Snapchat probably. But it happened like literally 15 times over the course of the evening. And you would just like all of a sudden hear kind of like a rush. And I'd be like, oh, somebody's slow dancing. And I would look up and they'd be like, and the kids would be like, oh.
Do you remember how awkward middle school slow dances are?
Yeah, and I can only think about like all of the, like the boys in like middle school and high school that I was like, I'm interested in you.
Yeah.
And then the next day I was like, nah.
Never mind. Yeah.
Like, get rid of that video.
That content online.
Right. Yeah. Who wants that?
Yeah.
Weird.
Isn't that?
So that's what the kids are up to.
The kids are.
Okay.
They're wild out
Yeah,
there.
and I mean they're getting more and more innovative with all of this technology. Like we actually talked a couple weeks ago about kids actually and adults as well attending cloud raves where they're on TikTok. They're going on TikTok to watch their favorite music artists play shows and things like that because they're not able to actually go attend these performances live, especially in places like China where they're trying to contain the coronavirus. And then, on top of that, kids are doing really dumb, we'll say dumb, but I mean, they're doing all these challenges because TikTok is, has these kind of weekly challenges. And so they're doing these really dumb stunts too, where they're potentially hurting themselves. We found one where a girl had accidentally shoved an entire harmonica in her mouth and couldn't get it out. She had to go to the hospital. It's really funny, but potentially very dangerous.
Yeah, here it is. Oh, I regret the thing I did.
And it's so funny because if you watch it with sound, every time she panics, she goes.
Wow.
So yeah, TikTok could be dangerous as well as good, but kids are definitely getting creative. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and don't stick a harmonica in your mouth like that. That's not how that works.
In your mouth, and
works.
don't share your friends' slow dances.
Yeah.
No.
Watch out for that.
That's weird.
There was a lot of that and a lot of like Fortnite dances. That's
Okay.
basically.
That's what it was. I feel like there's a whole story of what goes on with that, but we'll have to get that another time.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay,
to,
moving on from the kids.
From the kids.
They're all right though. The kids are all right.
They're gonna be fine.
They're gonna be fine.
I think they're gonna be fine.
They're smart.
figuring things
Yeah.
out. That's it. It's like you're really seeing how ingenious they are and like creative.
Hey kids, give us 5-star reviews. That'd be great.
Yeah,
that'd
kids.
be nice. Kids. All right, let's move on to the next part here of TV.
Yes. So we do a weekly roundup called Kick Stop It, where we take a look at the wild world of crowdfunding.
And boy, is it wild.
Boy, is it wild. We pick a campaign that kind of makes us go, huh? And this week it's a campaign called Foofy, which is a smart coffee mug.
Okay.
It lets
All right.
you upload photos and send them to people remotely using an e-ink display. So it's kind of a cute idea. but it also has the potential for abuse.
Well, that's exactly where my mind went. I mean, like, so I control someone? Like,
You control somebody because it comes with
Sweet.
an app. You can send pictures to people. So, in their idea, it's like people sending pictures of friends
Oh,
and
that's-
like family.
that is not what that was used for.
And it also has an open API, so you can, get content from like Twitter or, the weather or whatever if you want. I don't understand like why anybody would use this, not just their phone alongside.
Yeah. Right.
It seems unnecessary.
I will say that one of the interesting things is essentially they're harnessing the thermal energy from the coffee.
Okay,
It like, becomes
all right.
like the battery that runs it.
It's pretty cool.
Which like that part, okay, like coffee has energy and we're like using that to, okay, that's cool. But
That's cool.
I don't know, y'all.
love the idea of this as a punishment for like a bet that you lose, where you have to carry this around all day,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the other person just sends pictures of it constantly.
I'd kickstart that part.
I would kickstart that.
That's how I not being used.
Also, the name Foofy.
Yeah, Foofy. That's
Foofy.
yeah. I'm
This
not
is
sure
your
about that.
Foofy coffee.
Well, okay. So is it kickstart it or kickstop it?
Yeah.
I'm kick stopping.
I'm kick stopping as well,
fine.
unless it's specifically for that
Yeah,
idea.
for that purpose. I
Shame.
kind of want to get one and then just make a bet and hope that I win, like regardless of whatever it is.
And we will do everything
Just to
make
have
sure you
control
do
of that
not,
all
Greg
day
Nibbler.
Adrian's in a meeting right now. Oh. All right. Well, that one is that's a solid one. So
That's a
I'm gonna
solid one.
kickstart it.
Yeah, and
I like
we're
it.
going to kickstart some Charlie Cam right now.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, so
Cozy Fire.
regal.
Hi, every week we
buddy.
have a new video of Charlie Cam to close out
There's-
our TBD segment.
There is Charlie.
There it is. He's so
Majestic.
magnificent.
Majestic beast right there.
I would carry around a Foofy coffee cup
Of
as
Charlie,
on it.
yeah.
If you could just send Charlie Kim videos to it. No, that's okay. There we go. Back to kickstart it now. All right. I want to say thank you to everybody tuning in. This is Digital Trends Live. We are here every single weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And tomorrow we've got Lisa Marie Segarra on. She's going to talk about probably the cancellation of E3 and what that means, but also NFL 2K and the return of that. We've got some great guests joining us. We're going to have Caleb Dennison on to talk about televisions. We're going to be also having Gavin Lewis, one of the stars of Hulu's upcoming show, Little Fires Everywhere, where he plays across Kerry Washington and Reese Witherspoon in the role of her son. So the show explores the fates of the picture-perfect Richardson family. It premieres on the 18th, so they'll be joining us tomorrow. We have Aaron Keeney and Riley Wynn, who will be on for another segment of Real News, discussing what movies deserve your money at the box office this weekend, and of course, all of the breaking technology news of the day. I'm going to give you a spoiler. It's probably going to have to do with coronavirus. All right, so thank everybody for tuning in. We've got we'll be back live at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, wherever you consume content. So make sure to subscribe and follow us to get notified wherever we go live each day. For Digital Trends, I'm Greg Nibbler, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.